Hey solos! So you're interested in going to Disney all by yourself and you're wondering, is this a crazy idea? Am I just a crazy Disney adult? Well, solo spoiler, it's not a crazy idea to go to Disney by yourself. And sure, you can be a Disney adult. You can be a crazy Disney adult. In fact, there are thousands, millions of Disney adults who find Disney a place of nostalgia, a place of home, a place of community, a place of immersive sensory experience that you can't get anywhere else, that helps you bring you back to yourself. And now, as of today, there is a whole book on this very phenomenon of Disney adults that, in reading it, can introduce you to your own experiences about why you might be drawn to going to Disney solo. And I can't wait to tell you all about it. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. Olaf may not know who Samantha is, but now you do, and welcome to Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World, now in its second year. I am so excited about this episode because I have an interview for you with AJ Wolfe, the author of a brand new book that came out today called Disney Adults, Exploring and Falling in Love with a Magical Subculture. You might be familiar with AJ because she is a bit of an elder in the Disney adult community, as we talk about in this particular episode. AJ is the creator, the founder, the editor, the voice behind Disney Food Blog or DFB Guide, and she is the owner of AllEars, two of the most trusted, largest social media platforms for Disney content creation that is not by Disney itself. I know that both DFB Guide and AllEars were kind of my gateway drug to coming back into the Disney world, and I started watching right before COVID, and then all through COVID it helped get me through these long isolating days when I was like, when am I going back to Disney? And so to be able to talk with her about her new book is so exciting. This new book, Disney Adults, Exploring and Falling in Love with the Magical Subculture, is published by Gallery Books, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster, and it is a wonderful book that is full of research about why people are Disney adults, what does being a Disney adult mean, and it's really a love letter to what it means to be part of a community, even when you are kind of spread apart. And it really just seems so wonderful to be able to bring this conversation to this audience of people who are interested in solo travel to Disney World, because it really is a nice reminder about how many people are interested in Disney, how many adults just like you, because it is so often where people around you might not get it, but a lot of people get it. And this book helps remind you of all the people who get it. So please make sure you get a copy of the book. The link is down below to get your own copy, and the link to DFB Guide and AllEars are down below as well. But you probably already have those. Like bookmarked and you're following them on all the social media platforms, but there are some links down below so that you can follow them if you don't already. AJ was just really, really wonderful to talk to, and she isn't one of the content creators who you can see very often. So it was really great to be able to kind of meet her face to face. And if you want to watch our whole conversation, then you should follow the Patreon. So the links to all of the social media platforms for this podcast are also down below. Instagram, Facebook, Threads, but also Patreon. And when you become a member of Patreon, you can watch all of the solo story and all of the interviews that I do. You get a reflection on every single one of the episodes that sometimes feels like a little bonus episode in and of itself. You get bonus episodes every month. You get an opportunity to vote on upcoming episodes. You get a breakdown of the episodes that are coming up. And you also get some other tidbits and things like that as the month progresses. It's been a really cool space, and I hope you can join us there. It's a 7-day free trial. It's also a really low membership. It's like $1 a week for Americans, $1.25 for Canadians. Very affordable. Also, just a reminder for regular listeners, I'm going to be at Disney by the end of this week. I'm so excited. I'm going to be at Disney on Friday. And yes, I will post some things on Instagram and Facebook, but I find that it's been a lot easier to post those things on Patreon. And that way, if there's a video or whatever, you can see it right away. And it's not like a story on Instagram that will expire. And if you were busy that day, then you don't get to watch my park adventures and hotel adventures. This is going to be a very hotel heavy trip. So again, go on Patreon, become become a member. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. Buy AJ's book from wherever books are sold, but there are some links below. And please make sure you follow DFB Guide and AllEars if you don't already. And I'd be surprised if you don't. All right. I think that's enough preamble. Let's get into it. AJ, hello. Welcome to the Disney Solo Magic Podcast, the number one podcast for solo travel to Disney. Welcome.
I feel very not colorful right now, and I feel like I need some more color added to this whole thing because that whole thing is looking very colorful right now, and I'm loving it.
You know what? It's nice to have an opportunity to like put on my Disney clothes when I am not at Disney. So any
Yeah,
opportunity.
that's these are my Disney clothes. I basically wear the same thing every day. It doesn't matter. It's like, oh well, this works wherever I go. I am very not style, and so clearly I need to learn. I need to learn from
Well,
you.
I feel like you can go incognito through the parks in a way that other like giant creators can't.
Yeah, no, and that is by design.
Yeah.
I am a huge introvert. I mean, it's by design because we are covering stuff that we don't necessarily want Disney to know that we're covering so that they don't give us like the best looking plate or the whatever. We want to make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
that what we're talking about and giving an unbiased review on is actually unbiased and has not been affected in any way. And now that most, my team's in the parks more, more than I am probably on a daily basis, it doesn't matter quite as much, but we still like to stay under the radar, anonymous. It's not about the person, it's about how can we help you and show you what you're going to get. So it's still that old school food critic,
Yeah.
travel guide writer kind of vibe that we put out there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that's a good segue to you introducing yourself.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Hi. Hi, I'm AJ Wolfe. I own DisneyFoodblog.com. Our company also owns AllEars.net, and we have the associated YouTube channels and social channels and all of that stuff. And then I just wrote Disney Adults, which is a brand new book coming out from Gallery Books, which is an imprint of Simon and Schuster. So that is coming out on August 5th.
Yeah, it's great. I loved it so much. I read it this weekend. I thought it was really, really wonderful. And it's really interesting because I feel like you downplay your own role in the Disney adult bubble so much. Do you think you did that? Like, I just think that you're a bit of
Funny.
like, I don't know. I think that, yeah, I was like, oh, girl, like, pump yourself up. You are a Disney adult for us all.
I am absolutely a Disney adult. I think that I don't really think about that in general.
Ah, interesting.
I still see like I that's unfortunately either I don't know if it's unfortunately or fortunately that that's a drawback of mine is I can't ever really see what I have done as contributing, and I don't know how that's impacted. So that's something that maybe we need to look into a little bit is what did I know what I think I started in terms of I think I was the first person to ever hold something up in front of the castle and take a picture of it. But I also don't want to claim that if that's not true. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
that going on these days where people are like, no, no, I invented that. No, I invented that. So I'm just like, whatever, I don't care as long as it's here and everybody benefits from it. So that's a good point. I don't think I did talk about that very much. I mean, I did talk about my Disney adulthood
Yes.
personally
Yeah.
and how that's affected me, but not so much Disney food blog. Yeah, I didn't really bring the brand into it very much. You're right.
Yeah, it was interesting because like you talk how so much of it kind of exploded around COVID. Like the numbers just kind of surged when you thought they were just going to kind of tank, understandably. And
Yeah.
on the Disney Solo Magic podcast, we do a blend of like information about how to navigate X, Y, and Z solo, but also solo stories. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting how it's both a blend of COVID and also family. Because you started like the book initially, you were like, so many Disney adults, it starts with family. And then, like,
Yeah.
midway through the book, you talk about COVID. And that seems like that blend is so central to so many Disney adults right now, their own narratives.
I think so too. I think it starts with family and then, um And that can be any family. That can be found family, that can be your friends, that can be your grandma, it can be, your boyfriend, it can be your brother, whatever. But then you get to that point in your life, that kind of I guess, your quarter life crisis, where all of a sudden, family has been so central, and now all of a sudden you're kind of alone out there. And that's where I think COVID, everyone went online because they no
Mm.
longer had any sort of support system in person. And so everybody went online and started to find their tribe online. And that sort of really built up the community of Disney adults in a way that it had never been before.
Yeah, that's a really great way to say it. Like when you're in places where you're finding that you're like your ties with family are looser, but also
Yeah.
can get stronger through things like found family, through things like community. And COVID is a really it was an equalizer for social media, right? Because there were people like you write about that were doing these online blogs and these journals of Disney trips way before COVID, decades ago.
Yeah, we've been doing it a long time. But I think that's a really cool aspect for the concept of solo travel as well. A lot of us sort of feel, and this is something that is near and dear to my heart, by the way, is the solo travel concept. Okay, I'm gonna get into this. I love this story.
I love
When
it.
I was in my when I was in my early 20s, my mid 20s, and I was working in New York City. And this is also in the book, but there was kind of like it was a friendship breakup, but it felt like any sort of
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
breakup. You know what I mean? And my boss at the time, who was truly amazing, her name is Deb's on, but she gave me a book by Pema Chodron, who is a Buddhist monk. And she was basically like, the only thing that's going to be true about you until you die is you and
Mm.
what is here in your head, in your soul, in your body right now. And everything else is going to change. And that includes family, it includes friends, it includes where you live, it includes even spouses, children. Like the only thing that is ever constant is you. And so you have to figure out how to be okay with that and to be comfortable enough just sitting in that and knowing that everything else is going to pass by and change. That's something that's why, I love solo travel so much, is because it gives me more of an opportunity to just sit in the me and just why am I doing this? Why am I here? What's happening? And it takes you out of your regular context. Anyway, I don't know how I got on that, but that was just something that I think is super cool and important when it comes to people going to Disney alone. But anyway, go back to your original question.
Well, no, I mean that I don't actually remember it, but that reminds me of this meme I saw this past weekend that was like 12 years old, really love vampires, like 24 years old, feeling really lost, 28 years old, really got back into vampires and happy again,
Vampires.
right? And I think that with Disney adults, because like I talk to people where there is definitely well, I mean, not for everybody, but there's definitely like this gap between when they went with family as a child and then when they
Right.
have claimed that solo vacation. And so many people, like you talk about, like both in the preface, but also in other parts throughout, that you were finding this place of going to Disney as a way to connect with, I assume yourself, although I don't think you articulated it that way during these
Yeah.
confusing and messy and
Oh yeah.
stressful parts of your life.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely an escape for me 1,000%. And it was something that made sense when nothing else made sense.
Yeah. I love that you talk so much about nostalgia in the book. And it's interesting this blend of like escape, but also going home. And I
Yeah.
think that adults, Disney adults, really find that kind of middle place. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, especially related to the research that you talk about in the book.
Yeah, so what I say in the book is if you did a sizzle reel for this book, it would just be everybody, like a bunch of people saying the word nostalgia. Because everyone I talked to referenced nostalgia, whether it was Disney adults I was interviewing, whether it was psychologists, whether, anybody, Disney Imagineers, like everybody talks about how nostalgia is extremely impactful when it comes to how Disney fans Disney fan. So nostalgia, the word actually means missing home, is what it means. And a very interesting academic in my book was talking about how nostalgia sort of has taken on a different vibe for us now, because back in the day when it was coined in the 1800s, people couldn't go home that easily. There weren't airplanes, it took you, months and months on a ship to get home. Now we can go home easily. So what we're nostalgic for is experiences and people that we've lost or feelings that we can't feel anymore. That's what we're nostalgic for, and that's what we're trying to recapture. And so I think when you hit that sort of any of those crisis points in your life when things are sort of falling apart, or it's a shift or a change, or the ley lines are just doing something funny and you're like, what's next for me? I think a lot of us will try to get back to that, the last time we felt safe and comfortable and predictable. And a lot of times those experiences were at Disney, whether with family or with friends or whatever. And so we'll sort of get back to going to the parks and feeling that feeling again, or watching that TV show and remembering when we watched that TV show back in the 90s, everything was a little bit simpler, and we just kind of want to recapture that a little bit. But I also want to be very clear that there can be a balance with that, right? Like some people look to nostalgia as kind of a nefarious escape, like a way for them to literally walk away from their life, which is never going to be healthy or safe. And I think a lot of people do that. But the nostalgia we're trying to talk about here is recapturing that feeling in order to, I guess, strengthen yourself internally to take on what you need to take on. And academics look at nostalgia two different ways. You can either kind of head in the sand and escape your current situation, or you can use it as a way to bolster you a little bit and remind yourself of where you came from so that you have the strength to handle what you're dealing with. So, two ways to look at nostalgia, because it used to be the nostalgia was a disease, and it was all negative. And now academics are starting to find real scientific uses for it for us psychologically. So, very interesting, evolving topic there.
I think Disney adults know that too, very intuitively, because the
Yeah.
sense of going home, like you were saying with the Pemba Chopra book, it's just like to your own sense of self, right? Like the world is so busy and hectic right now that there is a sense of stability and safety, like you talk about in the book quite a bit, but also just a sense that you can kind of be.
Mm.
And I'm talking about solo travel in particular. I know a lot of people really talk about those experiences of just being like, oh, I can just kind of be myself, be my own like Disney adult weird self here in a way that when I'm a mother and a wife and a husband and a father and a worker and all this stuff, I can't really be. And so that nostalgia might also be coming back home to yourself.
Oh, 1,000%. And I think that's another reason why people use nostalgia is to recenter, because when you start kind of losing control of who you are and losing,
Yeah.
your true self, going back to the last time you felt centered is is going to help you find those tendrils again and figure out where you
Yeah.
need to be. And again, it can be negative. It can be too much. It can be the wrong solution. But for a lot of people with balance, it can be very, very useful as well to help you get to help you get to on the right path. You know what I mean? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like when you lose your way, when you're driving and you lose your way and you just turn around and go back to the last thing you remembered, or the last place you knew where you were, you go back there and then you start again, right?
Right.
So I think that's it's part of the roadmap, and part of learning and experiencing new things is sometimes, okay, I got to go back to the last thing I remember. The last thing I
Yeah.
knew was I knew where I was.
Yeah, and I talk about that in the podcast too. Like, Disney can be this sense of safety and nostalgia, but also it's so safe that it allows you to push yourself just like a little bit more, a little bit more. Like, try the bone marrow at the Flower and Garden Festival. Like, try like dancing at Disney Springs. Like, try just
Right.
yelling on Snow White's Mine Train. Like, just push yourself because it is safe and you know what the repercussions are. I put that in quotes, which is like, okay, I won't do it again, but you're still in that
Yeah.
really nice environment.
And that's why we always say there's the Mickey effect of getting your kids to try new foods at Disney,
Mm.
right? Is like if, if Mickey has approved it, then it can't be that scary. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so a lot of times kids will try new things that they aren't willing to try at home because they feel that they are in a safe space to try something new. So that in addition to, of course, all the psychological super stimulation that happens at Disney, that's why everybody's got a story of, well, my little brother walked for the first time at Disney, or, my cousin started talking at Disney for the first time, when she met Mickey Mouse. And a lot of that has to do with the super stimulation of the brain when you're at a theme park, which is just color and light and sound, and your brain is firing a million times a minute. And so it's able to kind of supersede what it was capable of before. So that's another reason why people fall in love at Disney. Like your brain chemicals are doing all kinds of stuff that they're not usually doing.
Yeah, I love that you talked about the super brain. And I was like, oh gosh, if only the super brain could work when it's like 115 degrees in the humidity. To be like, what is the best way to not feel so uncomfortable? Okay, so you talked right at the beginning, and you mentioned here too about going a lot in your 20s, when you had a friend break up, but you also talked about a friend who was sick. And I wonder, I kind of read through the lines in a couple of those stories that some of those trips were solo. Did you feel
Yeah.
like
Oh,
your Disney adultness came about through solo travel? Like, what did that look like before you did it as kind of like work?
that is a good question. I think my Disney adulthood was pretty established before I started going solo. But because my Disney adulthood was pretty established before I even started going to the parks, really, because
Mm,
I was consumed with the parks because I had been when I was a kid.
mm-hmm.
And so even before I started going, in my 20s, I was already reading the message boards and learning all that stuff. So I think it was pretty established, but I've never been someone who's had a problem with solo travel. I traveled a lot when I was in college. I did, years abroad and did a lot of solo travel in Europe and all around there, even in, when I was 20 and slightly older. So I have never had an issue with, doing solo travel, figuring it all out on my own. Oh, I'm in a hostel with a bunch of Italian guys. What can you do? You figure it out. And so I've always sort of looked at that as a superpower for me. That you can't do hard things unless you prove you can do hard things. And I think for a lot of people, solo travel's hard because you have to figure a lot out all on your own. It's also phenomenal because you get to do whatever you want. And, that's my favorite thing is I don't have to make sure I'm doing what everybody else wants to do. I can just do what I want to do. But solo travel also forces you to figure out the solutions on your own. And this is especially true if you travel internationally, places you haven't been before, and you're just like, oh, I have no idea where I'm supposed to go right now, and it's the middle of the night, and but to me that's a superpower, and to me that's how you build the muscles to do hard things in your regular life, and how you learn to not rely on everybody around you quite so much. When I was a Disney adult for a long time, I did a lot of solo trips. Most of my trips now are solo because my kid's 11, so he's in school, my husband's home with him. And so most of my trips are solo. I've done solo cruises and I love it. I honestly it's just so much easier than going than going with family because you don't have to make quite as many plans. You can change up at the last minute. I love it. So maybe I'm just a weirdo.
Not on this
But
podcast.
it's that's how I actually prefer to travel. And so, even when I'm in Europe and I'm like, well, I'm gonna go to this festival in this particular town, and my husband and my kid are like, well, we want to go, and I'm like, okay, great.
Oh, that wasn't an invitation.
Awesome.
I'm so glad we're all spending
I
time
like to
together.
I like to get the lay of the land sometimes too. Like I'll
Yeah.
go first and then I'll bring you once I know what's going on because I'm very OCD that way.
Yeah.
And so, there's that too, but I don't know. I love traveling alone because it just takes all the stress away a lot of the time.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's funny because like Disney adults get a lot of flack and you talk about that in the book, but solo Disney adults get this
You
other
know?
type of flack.
Yeah, a whole
And
lot, no, whole nother
when I
level.
talk to people, I'm just like, "Oh, do you know how much better Disney is when you don't have kids that you're going with or another adult that you have to like it's so much better." People just don't
Yeah,
get
I
it.
mean, listen, I've talked to Lou Mangello about this before, and I we were at a media event, and we were going to meet for dinner, and I'm like, okay, but I have to take a naked nap first, and he's like, I'm sorry, I don't think we should be talking about this, and I'm like, no, no, when I'm in a hotel by myself, I always take a naked nap because I can't take a naked nap at home, and it is just a it's something that has to happen every time I'm in a hotel by myself. So I'm like, okay, Lee, well, I will meet you for dinner, but I gotta take my naked nap first. And he was like, okay,
Okay.
AJ, this is TMI. But
But it's
anyway,
so, but like our lives are so intertwined with others most of the time. And
yeah,
so being able to travel by yourself, you can kind of untwist that a little bit more. And I know that when I go to Disney by myself, untwisting that in a place that is so safe, that does allow you to have a super brain, that you know that you're still in a community. Like so many people I speak to are like, you're not really alone. I mean, unless you're taking a naked nap,
right.
right? But you're never
Right.
really alone. You can talk to a stranger, like you'll be best friends in a minute. Like,
A
no, it's
thousand
fine.
percent. And that's
Yeah.
and that's something that a lot of people I interviewed too were like going to Disney World or Disneyland alone. It's a lot less weird if you strike up a conversation with somebody, like if there's a couple in line next to you and you're chatting with them or whatever, you're most likely gonna have something in common, with these people. And there's lots of opportunity to find, new members of your team,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you're doing that. And I think that people are super open to that in the parks.
Totally. Totally. And you interviewed one journalist who said that he had been talking to Imagineers that were surprised that he had gone
I
solo.
know. Isn't that weird?
That I found that really weird,
I do too.
especially at Disneyland.
Yeah,
I
I
I
know.
was like, what? I'm like, more, could we have some more context? Can I interview those Imagineers? What is up
And
with
I and
that?
I think and I think that might have been just a more old school belief system, maybe, that they're like, well, we were building Disneyland. It was for it, Walt's original plan for Disneyland was a place where parents and kids could come and do things together instead
Hmm.
of, he was sitting on the bench watching his girls, ride a carousel, and he wanted to do it with them, right? Um, so maybe it was just a different maybe there was different context around it or a different mindset, but I don't necessarily know that that's what Imagineers today are designing, because there are more adults without kids in the park than
Yeah.
there are adults with kids right now. And
Yeah.
so, the demographic has changed. And I think there's going to be even more adults without kids in the parks because people are having fewer kids. So, or not having kids at all. And so I do think that Disney is refocusing a little bit on adult centric options. Just talking about Geo 82,
Yeah.
like, who would have guessed that we would see a lounge in Spaceship Earth that was just for grown-ups. Like, I get it putting it on the fringes or in a hotel, but like in the Epcot weenie that you're gonna put an adults only lounge, like, that's unprecedented.
Yeah.
So, I think things might be shifting and changing a little bit because they're realizing their demographic is shifting and changing.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the adults are the ones with the money and also money for things like upgrading to a hotel or DVC club, right? To be able to appeal to those types of experiences, I think is a real missed opportunity. And you've said in the book that you see the Disney adults, like people who identify as Disney adults kind of growing. So I wonder if you see it with a specific demographic growing. And I'm going to like intertwine this with another question because you also kind of touched upon criticism that Disney has right now about things like maybe the lower quality or like a focus on yield over customer experience. And so I wonder if to me, like that would try to detract people, and the people that are growing are the people with money. Like, does that make sense? So I wonder if you could talk about those two things and maybe how you see them coming together. Because I know you could do the like inflation of a Mickey bar off the top of your head, which I'm like impressive, obviously.
I remember when Mickey bars were like $2.50.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a lot. That's a lot. There are a lot of questions that don't really have answers in terms of
Yeah, no.
how is the demographic growing? I don't know, except that I think we've always been here, and now we're just starting, more people are starting to find the tribe, right? Like more people
Mm,
are starting to realize, oh, okay, yeah, that's what I am. That explains this. So I think you're going to see the demographic growing in the same way that you're going to see a lot of online communities growing. And I think a lot of people on are joining online communities, are the stigma for being a member of an online community is getting a lot lower than it maybe was in the early 2000s. Um, and it's just becoming more mainstream to have at least a few of your best friends that you've never met before, right? They're just online. So I think that's going to continue growing. I think it's going to be more common. My kid's best friends are people he's never met and they don't live in our state, right? Because
right.
he's online, whether through like an out school or something like that. And so I think that's just going to keep growing, and you're going to see more and more people interacting with their tribes online. And that'll be the same with Disney adults. I think as you see people having fewer children, the Disney adult community is going to grow because people are going to own their love for this particular product, conglomerate, whatever. And the more that becomes mainstream, the more the kidult, we talk in the book about kidults, which are people who have a proclivity towards things that were created for children, like Legos or Cartoon Network shows, whatever. You're seeing a lot more kidults go mainstream, and that's becoming much less stigmatized. So I think you're going to see more people admit that this is a passion of theirs. So you're going to see that growth. In terms of the money situation, again, this is a difficult question to answer because, what we see on the surface is, okay, Disney's getting more and more expensive. The costs to go to Disney are rising at a faster rate than inflation. Is Disney just going to keep going because they're a business and they're just going to keep raising those prices until the demand starts to fall, right? Because the demand hasn't fallen yet, right? They're still hitting capacity in the parks. They're still hitting capacity for all of the other offerings that you can purchase through Disney. There's certain, we are waiting in virtual queues for hours to get tickets to Oogie Boogie Bash, and people aren't getting tickets. We're waiting in virtual queues for hours to go to D23 and people aren't getting tickets. There's obviously demand there. And in a business situation, the way to mitigate demand is to raise prices. That's just what you do. So we're going to see what happens on that front. I mean, Disney isn't a social construct that's, just universal healthcare available for everybody, right? Like it's a paid product. So we're going to see what happens, and if Disney is kind of willing to create a situation where um only, as they say, their income qualified people can go. So
But
we'll
I
watch
think
this space.
I think though that what you're saying too about the growth of online communities means too that people are also navigating and finding ways to be their Disney adult self that doesn't necessarily involve going to the parks, which is getting increasingly more expensive, or getting certain types of merchandise. There's so much more creativity that can flourish when you are meeting other people online. You mentioned Dapper Day, for example, in the book, and although that's not an online community, that's people kind of in person. This idea of like cosplaying, which is something else you talk about, is something that can be done that doesn't need to be in the parks. And so, in a way, perhaps the more expensiveness of the parks allows these communities to grow in like really creative ways. You mentioned that there's five senses that Disney tries to, capture, but the sixth sense is imagination. And
Yeah.
that kind of creativity through budgetary constraints could be a way of like growing these communities even more.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see a lot more of the subgroups coming out of subgroups, right? So you see the Galactic Star Cruiser fan base, the Halcyon conventions that are
Yeah,
starting
that was
up,
so
like
interesting. I did not know about I didn't even realize there were fans.
huge fans
Yeah.
of people who never even did it, who never even went to the Star Wars Hotel.
Yeah.
And yet the concept of it is so enticing to them that they are a fan of just the concept of it, right? So you've got this whole subgroup creating, an economic biodome around this
Right.
thing that
Yeah.
doesn't exist, it doesn't even exist anymore. And so I think that's something else that we're going to start to see is, once these subcultures online get big, they're going to start spinning off. And, well, these cosplayers are Marvel cosplayers, or,
Right.
these Parks fans are Hollywood Studios Parks fans. You know what I mean? So we're going to start to see that happen probably, where people are just going to niche down. Um, and that is absolutely 1,000% a good way to kind of assert your Disney adulthood without necessarily having to throw out cash every year to go to the parks. But then you've also got this weird hierarchical thing in Disney adults where there's a FOMO that if you haven't ridden this ride, do you qualify? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's that
Yeah.
weird thing that's always undercurrent of, well, you can't sit with us unless you've, been on this ride or you met this character or whatever, which all communities have that. I compare the Disney adult community a lot to church communities, right? All communities have hierarchies. All communities have their elders, right? The people who are in charge and are setting the trends and whatever. And figuring out what, I guess, qualifications you have to be included. And so that will evolve with all of these kind of subgroups and subtribes and subcommunities.
But AJ, like, do you know, without the exclusionary part, do you know that you are an elder of this community?
I'm
I mean, I say
assuming
that with like the
because
deepest respect, but not with like the
I've
exclusionary
been doing
part.
this for a long time. I've been doing this for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the other thing that was kind of funny when I was researching this book is hearing Disney adults complain about other Disney adults.
Yeah.
And just because it's been my job for so long to do everything, I've had the glorious opportunity to do everything. So it's like no one can necessarily look at me and say you don't qualify because I've done it all because I've done it for the job,
Yeah.
but I was like, oh, wow. Like that was actually surprising to me. I was like, oh, well, that sucks. Yeah, I bet that does happen a lot that people are like, yeah, you don't qualify because you haven't been here, you haven't done this. And it's like, well, that's garbage that happens.
And you talked about that feeling of urgency that you felt, especially at the beginning of getting that merchandise,
Yeah.
right? Like you're like, it's not an addiction, but there was a sense of urgency. And I talk on the podcast about like if you feel that this is like a healing trip for you, then just go, but don't worry about all those markers because in my experience, Walt Disney World is so big that it can look really big and fancy online, but once you get there, you're like, oh, this is just a like literal one drink and everything else is happening. And so
Yeah.
the more you just focus on what you're seeing online, the less you're going to really appreciate the larger universe or the larger
Yeah.
world that you're in.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, I used to live in New York City, right? And
Yeah.
and people look at New York as a whole and they're like, "Oh my God, it's so big." And it's like, "No, it's not. It's a bunch of teeny
Yeah.
neighborhoods. It's a bunch of little blocks, right? That's what New York is. And you have to approach it that way. And so you have to kind of be like, it looks big and scary and like, how am I ever going to conquer this thing? And it's like, you're not. You're never going to conquer the whole thing. It's impossible. You're going to figure out where you fit and what you love.
Hmm.
You love this particular Italian restaurant on 84th Street, and you really, really like this particular tea room in Greenwich Village or whatever. And you go to Chelsea because there's a thrift store you really like over there, and it's just these little, you find your little things you create your own sort of little neighborhood of things that you love. And that's perfectly acceptable and really the only way that you can conquer a place like
Totally.
Disney World.
Okay, I have two final questions for you, although they're kind of big-ish questions. So you talk a lot about like Disney adults giving flack for Disney adults, and that there's a lot of times you get a comment on one of the videos being like, gosh, what would Walt think about this? As if like, like the church community, like yellow
Walt be
bracelets, like back
rolling
in
in
the
his
day. Yeah,
grave.
yeah, exactly. So I wonder what you think that Walt Disney would think of Disney adults, because like I think he'd love it.
Oh my gosh, anything that could bring money in, Walt would love.
Yeah.
Like, I think Walt was an entrepreneur. Walt was a businessman. Walt was looking for synergy and deals, and Walt was circling back and doing all of those things that we make fun of with people who are, in business. That's what Walt was doing. And I think that he would super dig that there's this whole community of people that love the products he's creating, that don't even have kids involved in the picture. Or if they do, they don't need to. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people with kids who are Disney adults, but they are just as happy to go to Disney World without the kids. I think he would have seen that as conquering a demographic he didn't even realize he could conquer. So I think he would just be 1,000% game for that. And that's something I talk about a lot in the book too, that I know is going to be divisive with Disney adults is, I literally say in the book, Walt's been dead for 60 years. Like I get that we want to do what Walt would do. And I think that Disney is doing what Walt would do in the context of they are evolving with the current world and current situation. They're creating products that their demographic is going to love and that is going to just completely be outstanding to them. And I think that's all that Walt would have asked for is like, are we moving in a direction where we will stay alive? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that's what I say in the book is like, if Disney stays the same, they are static, they will die.
Yeah.
That's true of any company, right? You can't ever stay the same. And Walt said, Disneyland will never be finished. And these people who are like, well, Walt would hate this. Like, no, Walt would love this. Walt would
Yeah.
be super game for all this stuff going on. As long as it brought in money and wasn't like completely illegal.
Right. Yes.
And I'm
Um,
guessing on that last one, by
yeah.
the way.
So we talked before how I do history education, and it's interesting because like if you want something to look old, it means it needs to actually change every 5 to 10 years to adjust what you think looks old. And so,
Yeah.
like, the version of Main Street USA that was there in 1971 is
Right.
seems like it's the exact same, but it's because there's been all these little tweaks to make it seem the same old as it would need to be in the present.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Okay, the other question I have for you, I apologize if this is difficult. So you said that Disney is really about a sensory experience. So I wonder what your favorite sight, touch, taste, sound, and smell is at a Disney park.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Favorite site. I I will always sort of be bowled over when I first see Spaceship Earth from anywhere in the vicinity of Orlando because Epcot was my park when I was a kid. Like I went to Epcot in 1985. I was 7 years old, and so Epcot Center is my park.
So can
Um,
I just ask you a quick question for that?
yeah,
I wondered if you were that same age in today and you were
yeah.
going to the four parks, if Epcot would still be the place that's like embedded in your memory, even if they don't have the like fruits and vegetables dancing the way you talked about in the
Right.
book.
And again, and that I go into that in my book too. It's like your Disney
Yeah.
is what is completely different from my Disney, and everybody's the way it used to be
Hmm.
is completely different, right? It's whatever you experienced during that time when Disney kind of weaseled its way into whatever, your heart, your soul, your brain, whatever. So probably not. I don't know what it would be if I was
I love
7
it.
year old
Okay.
now. I
Yeah.
mean, maybe Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
Tower of Terror or a particular character, meeting a particular character, like there's been so many more movies since 1985 and so
Yeah.
there's so many more of those characters to love and be passionate about. So I have no idea, but
Yeah,
for
okay.
that, it is Spaceship Earth, and now and honestly, every time, and I've been to Disney hundreds and hundreds of times, and a lot of people ask me, well, now it's your job, so does it feel like it's a job? Every time I see Spaceship Earth, I will get a little flutter in my tummy
I
because
love
I don't
that.
know. I guess it just connects me back to my dad, my family,
Hmm.
and those times. Um, Favorite, okay, sight,
Okay, sight,
smell.
smell.
Maybe like, and this is weird. I'm not sold on this one, but oh, you know what? Chlorine in the pools.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm from New York. I'm from Western New York originally. We didn't have pools. You couldn't swim except for like 1 month out of the year. And so vacation to me is swimming in a pool because you never did it unless you were on vacation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Okay. I love that. It's funny with
Very,
smells because like sure there are smells that are like literally bottled up to
yeah,
to sell you, but it's things that like I find I can't articulate the smell, but when I am there, I'm just like, "Oh, there we are at Disney," you know?
there
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
What I was going to say before chlorine in the pools was the carpet soap wash that they use in the hotels.
Yeah.
Like it's
Yes.
very distinct, and you know that's a Disney hotel.
Yeah.
Okay, sight, smell, sound.
Sound.
I don't know. Let's come back to sound.
Okay. Taste. Taste. I don't know if that's more difficult than sound.
Taste is probably a lapu lapu. I really just that says vacation to me. Again, this I'm learning a lot about myself. Like I just want to not have to work. Like that's just like apparently my
Right?
goal.
Cool. I love that.
Everything is like I just want to be on vacation. So like having a lapu lapu and like what I always do with my lapu lapu that people think is weird is I take my straw and I put it down the side to get all of the pine like a big straw full of pineapple
Yeah.
from I eat the pineapple out of the straw.
Yeah. Perfect. Touch?
Probably again, I'm going back to the pool. Like, which is this is surprising for me because none of these are actually in the parks. Like
But
except for
that's
Space
what's so
Where it's
great
like
about being a Disney adult because you realize it's not just the parks, it is this whole world that you're living in, right? Like I talk about that on the podcast all the time. Like go experience the resorts. Like don't spend all the time in the parks because there is so much that you can experience, both for your just like yourself,
yeah.
like learning
And it's
about
all about
yourself.
it's honestly all about the hotels for me too,
I know,
because
me too.
you're only going to stay in the hotels if you're really, really on vacation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so the hotels were always like luxurious to me in a way that, you know, nothing else was. It's like, okay, I'm really on vacation.
Yeah.
So I think I have a very soft spot in my heart for the hotels, even more so than the parks probably.
I'm doing this series right now about all the different deluxe resorts. Last summer, I did the the value and moderate resorts for solos, and I've never stayed at any of the deluxe resorts. But I also have these like great experiences with like all the deluxe resorts because of how many other things there are to do there, and like the most calming experiences I have been like walking through the hallways in Animal Kingdom Lodge because the cast members are like the best views are at the like in the fire escapes at the end of the hall or like, there's so many great things about the hotels, and that's why it's so nice to be able to have this world that you can explore.
Oh, totally. And the fact that it's free to go in there,
Oh,
like
right. Yes.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
Like you don't have
Yeah.
to pay anything to walk into Animal Kingdom Lodge and sit in the lobby and like go to the campfire at night and
Yeah.
like do it. Absolutely do it because it's awesome.
Yes. Yes. No, I love that. Okay. Sound. Are we there?
Going
Hmm.
back to sound. How about okay, here's a good park one.
I'm not judging them. I'm not one of the judgy Disney adults.
It's fine. It's so I trust that. I think it would be they have this certain music loop in Magic Kingdom at Christmas, like during the holiday season,
Mm.
that almost sounds like a music box. Like it's very tinkly.
Yeah.
And I really like that particular music loop. So that
Okay,
one.
I love that. I love that. Well, AJ, this is so great. This is posted the day the book is coming out. So the link to the book is down below, and everyone can get both a hard copy and or a electronic copy. But you also did a audio version, right?
Yeah, they let me do the audiobook. I was so
I
happy.
hope they, I mean, that just seems like an easy in. Like everyone is so used to your voice.
Well, that was so funny because my agent actually wrote to me. He's like, they sent me a bunch of narrators to do your audiobook, but you don't want a narrator to do it, right? I'm like, absolutely not.
Yeah,
I want to do
that would be
that
that would
audiobook.
be so weird.
So I'm so glad they let me do it. It was so much fun.
Yeah, that's great. So you people can get it wherever books are sold, and how can people also follow all of the different things that you do as if they don't know?
Yeah, Disney Food Blog, disneyfoodblog.com. We are on social at Disney Food Blog, all of the social channels that I'm aware of, there's always new ones. And then DFB Guide over on YouTube is our current channel there. So definitely check all those out. We'd love to have you as part of our Disney adult group over there.
Yeah, and the like the team members that you have on AllEars that like do the videos, like the face characters that people see are always so great and have so much personality, and it really does feel like a nice community when you watch those videos. So great. Well, AJ, this
It,
was just
it is.
wonderful. Yeah, it
It
really
is
is.
very wholesome over there. And like all of those people in those videos, by the way, are all genuinely fabulous people. You know how you always like you don't want to meet your heroes sometimes, but
Yeah.
like they're wonderful, wonderful, very good folks, and they're just great, and they love doing what they're doing. So
I've seen Quincy in the park a couple times. I spoke to her once and another time. I just saw there were like people behind her being like, "Is that Quincy? I think that's Quincy."
yeah.
And I was like, "She's really nice. She'll probably just go say hello."
Right. And that's what's funny is when I'm in the parks with Quincy and nobody knows who I am.
Yeah,
I just like melt out. I'm like, I am going away because
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, because I'm such an introvert, so it just freaks me out. I'm like, oh, I'll sound like an idiot. I'll say something stupid. So I'm just like, okay.
It's really funny with the Star Wars Hotel, like when those videos first came out, like those first promo videos that you all did, and you were like, and so it's very interactive, which is really fun, unless you're an introvert like me, and then it might be terrifying.
It's stressful.
It was just
It's
like
true.
a
It
tone to
really is.
your voice that was like, I'm trying to be so nice, but please don't ever make me like LARP in a hotel again.
Oh my gosh, no. I just like I need it. Like when I go to 50s prime time, it's like I'm gonna watch from over
Yeah.
here and I'd like please don't make me stand up. Like I can do it. I can do it. I can turn it on if I need to. I could sing I'm a little teapot in front of everybody or go stand in the corner but I will probably cry for hours
Yeah.
afterwards.
We don't want that. We don't want that. Less crying, more naked naps in hotel rooms.
More naked naps.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. And my husband will probably get really mad at me for mentioning that because he's like, you have to be like, you can't be weird. And I'm like, well, I am weird. That is
I
what it
mean,
is.
look, a lot of people think Disney adults are weird. I think you are a key elder in the Disney adult community. That means you are the
What do you
weirdest.
expect?
So, whatevs.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
Thank you so, so
this was
much
so
for that.
wonderful to talk with you. I know my listeners are really going to appreciate it and just love the book because I really think in some ways it's just like a bit of a love letter to solo Disney adults specifically because some Disney adults that already have a tribe around them might feel so much more isolated if they're like the only person that's just like, is this weird? I
Yeah.
want to go and go alone. And so I just think it's going to be just such a great read for solos in particular. And so thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I think so too, because I just to build on that for 1 second, like
Yeah, of course.
I write it from the perspective of a solo Disney adult. Like I
Yeah.
said, both scripts are solo. So the entire book is written from that perspective, and everything I say in it is assuming you're going solo a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you're reading it from that perspective too. But I do think people are really going to like this. I kept learning the whole time I was writing it, and I'm
Yeah.
still learning. And so there's a lot of surprising stuff in here that people are going to go, really? And I think people are going to find that throughout the book. So it's going to be great.
Yeah, I think it's a great read. I think it's also like the perfect length for a nice like summer read. We have all of August and then like if you get into like the rush of school and all that stuff, now you have this like little place that you can go and do some more reading and just be like, right, that's right.
You're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, you're gonna learn so much. It's gonna
Yeah.
be fabulous.
Yeah.
And then maybe bring it with you on your solo trip. And when you're at the pool, you're reading, and then you go upstairs and take your night nap, which is
Well,
always best after a shower.
okay, right. Because you can also smell the chlorine. Think of
Right?
AJ. Take your
Yes.
naked nap. Don't think of AJ. But also read the book.
Good clarification.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just being very clear. Like that's not the weird. No, 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 no.
You do you, but
You do
okay.
you. Yeah. Except for that. That's weird. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Hi everyone, it's Samantha. I hope you like this episode and all the episodes of Disney Solo Magic, the #1 podcast for solo travel to Disney World. Just a reminder that a link to Disney Adults as well as DFB Guide and AllEars are below, as well as the link to the Patreon and all of my social media. Many thanks to AJ for agreeing to be on the podcast, to Gallery Books and Simon & Schuster as well for helping facilitate this conversation. All right, everyone, until next time, bye.